Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Manure and Fertilizer Part 1. So in this session we are going to study about an introduction to the fertilizer. So what are fertilizer? We are going to study about that. Then there is a different types of fertilizer. So fertilizer has been classified, right? That is the classification of fertilizer. So there are generally two types of fertilizer on the basis of their state, that is the solid fertilizer and liquid fertilizer. So that also we are going to cover up in this particular session, right? So this is the first session for the manure and fertilizer. So let us start. Okay, so the fertilizer is any material of natural or synthetic origin added to the soil to supply one or more plant nutrients. So why we add this material to the soil? Because sometimes the soil are not having all the required nutrients for the crop, for the growing of the plants, right? So we have to replenish that particular nutrient so that our crop can flourish in a proper way, right? So the fertilizer, that is a material that can be natural or that can be synthetic in origin, right? So that is added to the soil, and basically that is done to add nutrients to the soil, that nutrients that is required by the plants, right? So the fertilizer are additional substances supplied to the crops to increase their productivity. We want to increase the productivity of the crop, right? Good yield of the crop. So that is why we are adding this fertilizer. So the soil should have all the required nutrients that is required for the growth of the crop plants. So they are used by the farmers daily to increase the crop yield, right? So this is about the fertilizer introduction. Now the classification of fertilizer. So the classification of fertilizer, that shows that we are having three different types of fertilizer: straight fertilizer, complex fertilizer and mixed fertilizer. So we will see what are these three different types of fertilizer. The first one is the straight fertilizer. Straight fertilizer are those which supply only one primary plant nutrients, namely nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium. So the fertilizer, this type of fertilizer will either contain nitrogen nutrients, and when you add this particular fertilizer to the soil, then this nitrogen will be available in a proper amount for the growth of the crop plants. That can either be phosphorus and that can either be potassium. So this is the straight fertilizer. So examples are urea, ammonium sulfate, potassium chloride and potassium sulfate. So you must remember this name, that is important. Okay, so the straight fertilizer are those which supply only one primary plant nutrients. Next, complex fertilizer. So complex fertilizer contain 2 or 3 primary plant nutrients, very opposite from the straight fertilizer. So the straight that contain only one type of nutrient, and here 3 primary plant nutrients, of which 2 primary nutrients are in the chemical combination. These fertilizers are usually produced in the granular form, that is diammonium phosphate, nitrophosphates and ammonium phosphate. Very important to memorize this, because question can be asked that by giving the different examples of fertilizer, and they can ask which one is the complex fertilizer or which one is the straight fertilizer. Okay, so this is very, very important. So complex fertilizer that contain 2 or 3 primary plant nutrients. Mixed fertilizer, third type, are the physical mixtures of straight fertilizers. So we can have different types of straight fertilizers, right? The one that contain nitrogen, the one contain magnesium, or the one contain phosphorus, right? So if we mix this and this, then that particular fertilizer will have all the three important nutrients, right? So they contain 2 or 3 primary plant nutrients. Mixed fertilizer are made by thoroughly mixing the ingredients either mechanically or manually. So we can mix with either manually or with the help of some machines even. So this is the physical mixture of straight fertilizer, right? So straight fertilizer, complex fertilizer, and mixed fertilizer. Okay, now the fertilizer that can also be classified on the basis of their physical form, how they are, and physically how they are present. So that can be either solid fertilizer or liquid fertilizer. That means this fertilizer that is present in the solid state, and this fertilizer that is present in the liquid state, and that is added in that form only to the soil. So that is fertilizer, two form, solid fertilizer and liquid fertilizer. So here are some of the forms of the solid fertilizer are in the several forms, that is powder, single superphosphate, that can also present in the form of crystals, ammonium sulfate, prels, urea, diammonium phosphate, superphosphate, granules, Holland granules, super granules, urea super granules, and briquettes, that is urea briquettes. So there are so many forms of the solid fertilizer. The solid fertilizer are present in so many forms. So here you can see the powder form of fertilizer, granules form of fertilizer, and crystal form of fertilizer. Next is the liquid fertilizer. Liquid fertilizer. So liquid form fertilizer are applied with irrigation water or direct application. So when there is an irrigation water, so this particular fertilizer is applied with the water, right? Or for the direct application, so this is used direct form, so that is why it is called as direct application. Ease of handling, less labor requirement, and possibility of mixing with the herbicides have made the liquid fertilizer more acceptable to the farmers. So this is particular easy to do, and it requires less labor because you are just mixing with the irrigated water. This particular type of fertilizer is added with the liquid water, right? The irrigated water actually. So you do not have to roam all over the field and spread the granules or the crystals or the powder form of, that is the solid form of fertilizer, right? That require a lot of labor to spread all over the crop field. But this can easily be added to the irrigated water, and that can be applied directly to the soil, and that can reaches to the crop plant, right? So this possibility of mixing with the herbicides have made the liquid fertilizer more acceptable to the farmers. Okay, now the liquid fertilizers that can be nitrogenous, that can be phosphatic fertilizer, that can be potassic fertilizer, and that can be complex fertilizer. So the liquid fertilizers are present in the 4 different forms. Liquid fertilizer, ammonical, ammonium sulfate. Examples are ammonium sulfate, ammonium chloride, and anhydrous ammonia. So these are some of the ammonical based fertilizer. Nitrate, sodium nitrate, calcium nitrate, potassium nitrate, right? So these are the different nitrate based fertilizers. Ammonical and nitrate. So both are present, that is ammonium nitrate, calcium ammonium nitrate, ammonium sulfate nitrate, right? Amide fertilizer, urea and calcium cyanide are the two examples for this. So this is all nitrogenous fertilizer, that is nitrogenous fertilizer. Nitrogenous fertilizer take the foremost place among the fertilizers, since the deficiency of nitrogen in the soil is the foremost and the crop respond to the nitrogen better than other nutrients. So this is one of the very important nutrients that must present in the soil, and basically this is the nutrient that is required in a very large quantity by the plant. So when it is taken by every cycle of the crop, so basically this particular nutrient becomes less available to the subsequent crop, right? So we must replenish this particular type of nitrogen every cycle of the crop, right? So that is why it is foremost and the crop respond to the nitrogen better than other nutrients. So this particular nutrients is required in a great quantity, and this is the one of the very important nutrient because nitrogen is required for the synthesis of proteins. More than 80% of the fertilizer used in country are made of nitrogenous fertilizer, particularly urea. So 80% of the fertilizer that we are using for the crop, right? So that is the nitrogenous fertilizer in the form of urea. It is extremely efficient in increasing the production of the crops, and the possibilities of the economic production are unlimited. So this is required to increase the production of our crop yield. Okay, and that is why we are required this, because if there is a good amount of crop, better seeds, quality seeds, right? So that happens only when all the nutrients are that present in the soil, basically the nitrogen. So this nitrogenous fertilizer helps to increase the production of crop, and in turn it increases the economic production, right? Now, nitrogenous fertilizer can be further classified as given below: ammonical fertilizers, nitrate fertilizers, ammonical nitrate fertilizers, and amide fertilizers. So we are having 4 different types of nitrogen fertilizers. Okay, so we are going to study this up in a great detail. So the first one is ammonical fertilizers. The ammonical fertilizer contain the nutrients nitrogen in the form of ammonium or ammonia. Very, very important. So this ammonical fertilizer that contain nitrogen in the form of ammonium or ammonia. Either it is present in the form of ammonium or ammonia. Ammonical fertilizers are readily soluble in water. It get easily solubilized in water and therefore readily available to the crops. So this is one of the advantage of having a fertilizer supplied to the crop, supplied to the soil, added to the soil in the form of liquid form, because it get easily soluble, first thing, and the second, that it is readily available to the crop. Readily available means easily available to the crop. If that is a solid in the form of solid fertilizer, then it will get solubilized slowly and it will take time. So it is not easily available to the crop, it will take time. But this liquid fertilizer, right, so they are very easy to get available to the crops. So the first one is the ammonical fertilizer, right? Except rice, all crops absorb nitrogen in nitrate form. So except rice, all the crops, whether it is a pulses, whether it is another type of cereal crop, so they all absorb nitrogen in the form of nitrate form. These fertilizers are resistant to leaching loss. Very important. this fertilizer do not get lost by the leaching process, as the ammonium ion gets readily absorbed on the colloidal complex of the soil. So there is no time of leaching. If the fertilizer is present in the soil for the longer duration of time, so and it is not absorbed by the crop plants, then there is a possibility of leaching this fertilizer, and then when it get leached, then it causes a lot of destruction to the water. So when it reaches to the ground table, that is the water table, then it can that the water quality of the water table, that also get degraded, right? So this particular type of fertilizer, it get easily absorbed on the colloidal complex of the soil, so there is no time for the leaching loss of this particular type of fertilizer. So the first one is the ammonium sulfate. Ammonium sulfate, NH4 whole twice SO4. So it is a white salt completely soluble in water and containing 20.6% of nitrogen and 24% of sulfur. So it is having sulfur and nitrogen. Ammonium sulfate. So it is used advantageously in rice and jute cultivation. Very important. It is required for the rice and jute cultivation. It is easy to handle and it is stored well under the dry condition. So it can easily added to the soil, and when it is stored, okay, so that can easily be stored in the dry condition, right? So this is the white salt completely soluble in water. It is completely soluble in water, and it contains a good amount of nitrogen, that is 20.6% nitrogen and 24% sulfur, right? So it is used for rice and jute cultivation, but during the rainy season it sometimes forms lumps. So it can be applied before sowing, at the time of sowing, or top depressing to the growing crop. Okay, so it can be applied to the crop before sowing, after sowing, and at that time of sowing, or top dressing to the growing crop. So anytime that can be applied. So this is one of the advantage. Next one is ammonium chloride. Ammonium chloride, NH4Cl. The white salt contains 26% of nitrogen. So it is usually not recommended for tomato, tobacco, and such other crop as may be injured by chlorine. So chlorine can cause damage to the tomato, tobacco, right? So these type of for these type of crop, this is not recommended. Next one is anhydrous ammonia. Anhydrous ammonia means no water is there. Okay, so it is a colorless and pungent gas containing 82% nitrogen. It is the cheapest, and that can be applied directly to soil by injecting using blade type applicator having tubes. It becomes liquid, that is anhydrous ammonia under suitable conditions of temperature and pressure. Second type, that is the nitrate fertilizer. Now ammonium fertilizer we have completed. The second type is the nitrate fertilizer. So the nitrate fertilizer contain the nitrogen in the form of NO3. These ions are easily lost by leaching because of the greater mobility of nitrate ions in the soil. So this is one of the disadvantage, that this particular type of fertilizer can be lost by leaching effect, right? So they are having a lot of mobility of nitrate ion in the soil, and that can be lost by leaching process. Continuous use of these fertilizer may reduce the soil acidity, as these nitrogenous fertilizers are basic in their residual effect on the soil. So very important, this fertilizer is, if the soil is acidic, right? So you can add this particular type of fertilizer, as this is the basic fertilizer. So it neutralizes the effect of acid in the soil. Sodium nitrate, NaNO3. Sodium nitrate is a white salt containing about 15.6% of nitrogen. Low nitrogen comparatively, but it is completely soluble in water and readily available for the use of plants such without any chemical change in the soil. So it is not causing any chemical change in the soil, and it is completely soluble in water and easily available to the crop. So it is easily lost by leaching and denitrification also. When large quantities of sodium nitrate are added year after year, the nitrate ions are absorbed by crops and sodium ion get accumulated, affected structure of the soil. So for a longer duration, if this particular type of fertilizer is added every year, then there is some damage to the soil because this nitrate ion are absorbed by the crop. But what about the sodium ion that get accumulated in the soil? And sodium nitrate is also known as child saltpeter or the Chilean nitrate. Sodium nitrate is particularly useful for acidic soil. So this is used for acidic soil. Next one is the calcium nitrate, CaNO3 whole twice. White crystalline hygroscopic solid soluble in water containing 15.5% of nitrogen and 19.5% calcium. So when there is a less amount of calcium in the soil, so that can be added. So it can provide calcium along with the nitrogen. The calcium is useful for maintaining the desirable soil pH. So this calcium is also important to maintain the pH of the soil. Potassium nitrate, KNO3. The purified salt contains 13% nitrogen and 36.4% potassium. The nitrogen of the potassium nitrate has the same properties and the values as that of the sodium nitrate, right? So the nitrogen of the potassium nitrate, that means in the potassium nitrate, the nitrogen that is present has the same property and the value as that of the sodium nitrate. Ammonical and nitrate fertilizer. So this is the third type of fertilizer, ammonical and the nitrate fertilizer. These fertilizer contain nitrogen in both ammonium and nitrate forms, right? So nitrogen is present in the form of ammonium as well as in the nitrate form. Earlier we have seen that the nitrogen is present in the form of ammonium, that is ammonical fertilizer. The nitrogen is available in the form of nitrate, then it is a nitrate fertilizer. But here both, that is ammonical and nitrate fertilizer, both type is present. The nitrates are useful for the rapid utilization by crops. So this nitrate is readily available for the crops and ammonical is gradually available. Okay, so both the type that is present in the this form of fertilizer. The first example is ammonical and nitrate fertilizer. First example is ammonium nitrate, NH4NO3. It is white, water soluble and hygroscopic crystalline salt containing 35% nitrogen, half as nitrate nitrogen and half as ammonium nitrogen. Okay, and in the ammonium form it cannot be easily leached from the soil. So this is one of the advantage, that it doesn't get easily leached from the soil. Next is the fertilizer is quick acting but highly hygroscopic and not fit for storage. It has an acidulating effect in the soil. So it causes acidity, increases the acidity in the soil. It is dangerous in pure form because of explosion hazard. So when it is kept in a large quantity, okay, in the pure form, then that can causes explosion also. So it is very carefully, it can be stored, should be stored and used also. Calcium ammonium nitrate, CAN. Calcium ammonium nitrate is a fine free-flowing light brown or granular fertilizer containing around 26% of nitrogen. It is almost neutral and can be safely applied even to the acid soil. Half of its nitrogen is the ammonical form and half in the form of nitrate. Calcium ammonium nitrate. So here you can see it is made harmlessly by adding lime. Next is ammonium sulfate nitrate, NH4 whole twice SO4 NH4 NO3. It contains 26% nitrogen. 3/4 of it is in the form of ammonical form and the rest, that is 6.5%, is in the form of nitrate. So they are not present equally, right? So 26% of nitrogen is in the form of ammonia, that is ammonical, and the rest, that is 6.5, that is present in the form of nitrogen. In addition to the nitrogen, it contains 12.1% sulfur. It is a mixture of ammonium nitrate and ammonium sulfate. It is available in white crystalline form or as a dirty white granules. It is readily soluble in water and very quick acting, that it get quickly absorbed. Its keeping quality is good and it is useful for all the types of crops. In acid effect on the soil, it's only half of that of the ammonium sulfate. It can be applied before sowing, at the time of sowing, or even as a top dressing. Amide fertilizer. The fourth type is the amide fertilizers. So amide fertilizers are readily soluble in water and easily decomposable in the soil. So again, this is one of the advantage of this particular type of fertilizer, that it is readily soluble in water and easily decomposable in the soil. Even the amide form of nitrogen is easily changed to the ammonical and then to nitrate form in the soil. So the first example of this is the urea, CONH2 whole twice. It is the most concentrated solid nitrogenous fertilizer containing 46% nitrogen. So here 46% of, that means a good quantity of nitrogen is present in this particular type of fertilizer. It is a white crystalline substance readily soluble in water. It absorbs moisture from the atmosphere and has to be kept in the moisture-proof containers. It is readily converted to the ammonical nitrate form in the soil. The nitrogen is used in urea is readily fixed in the soil in an ammonical form and it is not lost in drainage even. Urea sprays are readily absorbed by the plant, so it may be applied at the time of sowing or as a top dressing even. So it is soluble for most crops and can be applied to all the types of soil even. Calcium cyanamide. So the next and the second type of this amide fertilizer is the calcium cyanamide, CaCN2. The calcium cyanamide or the nitro lime contain 26% of nitrogen. 26% of nitrogen is present in this, and it is a grayish white powdery material that decomposed in the moist soil, giving rise to ammonia. Okay, so this is all about this session. We will have one more session to complete the different types of fertilizer and manure. Thank you very much.